Maybe I should just like go for a walk, like whatever that you know that will help you to deal with your emotions, then you do that.
Welcome back to the Recalibrate podcast, a series of conversations and ideas that help us connect more deeply to others and therefore ourselves. Each episode is designed to help you reflect and reconnect, leaving you more inspired on your path towards a more purpose-driven life. Before we get into the episode, if you could go ahead and rate the podcast wherever you listen and also subscribe, that would be super, super helpful. Let's get into it. Welcome, Stef, to the podcast. So excited to have you on today. We were just chatting a little bit before, but I came across Stef online and I loved everything that you were sharing. So I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to give a little short intro background into what you're sharing before we get into it?
Sure. So my name's Stef. I'm actually a product designer by trade, but I am also a meditation teacher. I just got certified last year, and I am a content creator now as well, which is really interesting and a fun project for me. And I talk about just mental health hacks and stuff around relationships and conscious partnerships and all of that. So really exciting and fun stuff.
I love that. How did you get into the meditation, mindfulness, content creation space? Since I'm a product manager too, so it exists very separate from my world. I feel you, but I'm always interested to hear, how did you start getting interested in those types of things?
Honestly, I had a love and passion for mindfulness since a very early age. I think in my teens, I struggled with anxiety and depression, and just teens in general. That type of age is just so volatile that I got really into that because I was seeking some sort of spirituality to ground me. And so I was reading a lot of meditation books, and I read A New Earth when it just came out in 20, I think it was 2005 or something like that, something crazy. And so I was always really into it. And then I think 5 years ago I had a stable practice. And then about 2 years ago, I was like, okay, I want to actually make this a thing that I do. So I got certified, and it's been a wild ride ever since. I think I have 2,000 plus hours of meditation under my belt now, which is really great. It's not like a competition with myself either. It's something I feel I really kind of hold dear because it's something that really empowers my mental health in a way that nothing else has.
Yeah, definitely. And you said you got certified in meditation last year. Have you started teaching it more broadly to students yet? Or is it something that just helped deepen your practice?
It was something mainly for my own practice, but I do teach at my startup. So I do run workshops at work, which is really interesting and fun. And so I'm doing it in the corporate setting, which is very, very, it's just interesting because it's adapting how we use it in our work life and balancing that and making sure it's something that everybody can digest in a way. So I'm doing that now, and it's been great, but mostly I'm just creating content from it, like what I've learned on TikTok or Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, I love that. And I feel like you mentioned this a little bit in your intro, but you talk a lot about relationships and conscious partnerships in your content. And that's how I found you. And I loved the things that you were sharing because I think you give such practical advice and also unique things that I haven't heard before. What do you feel has been those things that have taught you what it means to be in a conscious partnership and how you've built into your relationship since you've been in it for many years?
I've been in a relationship for 16 years. We've been together since 08. So we've been together forever. We met at 21. And I want to say I was not good at relationship always. And the thing that really transformed, I was 21. Every 21-year-old you're not going to be good at relationship. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess up. But I think what really helped me grow into a relationship is the mindfulness practice, is getting that separation from thought and myself and being able to say hey, just because I think it doesn't make it more valuable than what they think. You know what I mean? Just because it's my opinion, it's not better than theirs. So just getting a little bit of that separation, having a broader perspective, seeing things as mental models as opposed to just a part of them. It's just the way they think and how we can understand each other. That has been part of my practice. And that's really grown my relationship, just having that mindfulness practice in there.
I love that. And you're really able to understand your partner more deeply, probably through that lens, if you're not just constantly taking it personally or trying to assign all this meaning that really isn't there through conflict or through just understanding your partner better. So I feel like the mindfulness piece is so important. But I love how you phrase it on social media of like how to stop fucking up your relationship, because a lot of people will either self-sabotage or they'll just like take it. Like, what are your tangible tips for people? Like, how did you come about that list, basically?
Just being observant with how I actually messed up. Like I'm only ever, because like my partner like didn't sign up to have his relationship on blast either. So I definitely want to respect his boundaries and I want to respect our relationship. So I only speak from personal experience. When I say like, don't fuck up your relationship, it's like the things that I actually did. And I can see a really horrible effect and how it erodes trust over time. And so I only speak from personal experience, but it's things like, don't assume, don't project into the future. Like just because they're doing something now doesn't mean that they're going to always do it. Have some understanding about what they're thinking about and what their capacity is. It just comes from real life lived experience, because we've been in a relationship for 16 years and we've basically been through so many cycles, and there's so many different cycles and so many different stages that each one really is like, there's a lot of learning every single phase.
How do you know in your relationship? I guess I've seen a lot of friends go through different phases of relationship, and there's like the beginning and it's fireworks and exciting honeymoon phases. And then you like start to learn your partner better and you have to go through actual challenges and things like that.
Yeah.
How do you deal with like those transition points in the different phases of your relationship, where it goes into different periods that are more challenging or different periods that just like feel uncomfortable and they're not, I don't know, maybe a rough patch or whatever? Like, how do you deal with those transition pieces?
I view every transition as an initiation. Essentially, it's requiring you. There's a requirement of your ego to sort of let go and expand. There's like a breaking that happens, and it signifies some sort of growth period. So it is very uncomfy, but it can be very beneficial if you both go into it learning and growing and nurturing each other and listening, as opposed to judging and criticizing. So yeah, those different transitional periods for me, if you just frame it as these are growth phases, as opposed to like, this sucks, it's going to always be like this. This is going to be, like we're just not seeing eye to eye. Like if we get into black and white thinking, it can be really catastrophic for sure. So I just think it's like a metamorphosis of like a new stage. And if you just allow it to be that, it actually can go to that next step.
How do you view those periods where, I don't know, you're having like that egoic attachment, or you feel like you're being super defensive, or like you notice it's within you? Like, what are some things that you've done that have helped work on that mental model that you talk about that makes it so that you're not projecting onto your relationship? Like, do you have any practices that you feel have been really helpful in that space?
Yeah. One weird thing I just posted about it is that I can get into a practice where when I see them sort of getting triggered, because we all trigger each other constantly. That's just the way it is. But when I see if the other person is getting triggered, I picture a snow globe. You know, a snow globe, you kind of shake it up, and when the snow's going everywhere and you can't quite see clearly the picture anymore, I get a sense, okay, that person is snow globing right now. Like they are swirling, they're just in it, and they're having an internal experience that's being like projected out, and they're feeling very uncomfortable, and they're having a lot of big feelings. And so when I see them snow globe, I make sure that my only focus is not to engage, it's just to bring my snow globe down. It's to bring my snow down. So I'll do like a breathing practice. Whenever I see anybody triggered, I go internal. You don't want to actually project. You don't actually want to engage. I just go internal, and I'll put my snow down with like a breathwork practice where I'm like visualizing snow, and I'm like actually putting it down my body and like into my solar plexus, and I'm like keeping it there. And when they see that you're not sort of engaging with them, they'll kind of start calming down a little bit more. And then you can proceed to have a conversation. So there's just like some sort of mindfulness tips there to just peel you back a little bit away from that sort of like really entrenched, like a very passionate conversation, and get a little bit more room so that you can kind of step back and take a breath. And it's a little bit more productive. There's just some things where you can be like, hey, I don't think we're going to be productive right now. Like, can we just revisit it in like 20 minutes? And he's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
it just depends on what practice like feels good for you. But ultimately it's like never engage when you're really mad. Try to get it down a couple notches and then try to re-engage after that.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I've noticed that people obviously are very attuned to each other's energy. And if you're having a really heightened sense of energy, or you're feeling angry or chaotic
Yeah,
or super intense emotion, it obviously reflects onto the other person. And if you're able to maintain the sense of calm and grounding, that will also bring down the other person's energy. So I feel that makes total sense, even though it's difficult to do sometimes, but I like that
it
snow
is.
globe
Yeah.
visualization. What do you feel about attachment styles and how people have like different attachment styles and relationships, and avoidant and anxious, and how they can like kind of coexist with one another?
I think those things are actually more fluid than I feel like people want to understand themselves so much
Yeah.
that they want to put themselves in a box. And I feel that appeal. Like I understand and I sense it deeply. But I also know that we're so human, being human is so big and it's so undefinable. And I feel like at certain points I could be avoidant and at certain points I could be another type of attachment style. And like, that's totally okay. Like I don't actually want to ever label myself in a certain attachment style because I feel like ultimately that's just going to limit me and my expression and what I think I should or shouldn't be doing based on the attachment style that I already assigned to myself. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of shy away from like ever trying to like put myself in a box like that. But if I'm avoidant, I'll be like, hey, I'll just be honest. Be like, but I have this safety within my relationship. It always starts with safety, psychological safety. If you don't have psychological safety, there is no way that you can go ahead and admit something like, hey, I'm feeling like super vulnerable and I'm feeling really clingy right now, or I'm feeling like very avoidant right now because that sense of psychological safety is just not there. But that's a really roundabout way of saying like attachment styles, I'm sure, are totally a real thing. I just don't want to, in terms of stages of relationship, I can see that you can have a different attachment style based on a different stage of relationship you're in. Or like in the
Yeah.
beginning, you can be like super attached. Like in the middle, when you're trying to like sort of differentiate yourself within the relationship, because now you're secure, you want to be like, I want to be my own person. And so then you're going to be probably a little bit more avoidant, or even with certain topics, you'll probably be more avoidant versus more plain. So just give yourself room to be whatever it is that you are actually feeling. Give yourself room to do that and just communicate with your partner. As long as you prioritize safety, I think that to me is the biggest key.
Yeah, definitely. I've noticed that too. I love that advice because I think people, like you said, are really clinging to find the language or the verbiage that can describe them in any given moment. But like different relationships have different
Oh yeah.
avoidance or anxious, and like I am anxious with some people and avoidant with some people, insecure with some people, and even in different situations and topics, like you said, it just is so fluid and it's never really a fixed state and changes so much based on my emotional state.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about safety. And I think you really can't have an intimate relationship with anybody, friendship or romantic partnership, if you don't have that
Right.
safety and honesty. What are some ways that you've cultivated that safety? Do you think it comes over time? Has it been anything that you and your partner have done together or you have done in friendships that have made it easier to build that foundation?
I think just being mindful, mindfulness again, just being really present with the person, ultimately being present, being very non judgmental, being very open, being very curious, and being very accepting. If you're accepting of what is, whatever that is, if they're angry, if they're sad, and you're just sitting there and you're saying that's anger, that's sadness, like you can have those and I'm not going to run away. Like, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm here for it. If you can do that, then I think that really is the thing that cultivates this like really nurturing presence that you can offer to any of your interpersonal relationships. I think that that's for sure the key.
Yeah, I love that. I have a lot of in my life, I see a lot of people split between obviously in different phases of relationships, or maybe even like in and out of relationships, going through heartbreak, going through dating, going through the first date cycle, been in relationships for like 5 or 6 years. And there's just so many different phases that I see people struggling with or working through and navigating. What would you say, like, if you're in the dating phase and you're getting really caught up in like the basing it on your worthiness and kind of tying yourself up, your self-concept in external validation of going on dates or meeting people and having that really take up your headspace. Do you have advice for navigating that phase of relationships and knowing if like this is your person, or like how do you work through those different challenges that come with that?
I caught half the question because you were kind of breaking up. What I will say is that I haven't dated in 16 years, but I think ultimately it's like you have to trust your intuition, but to trust your intuition, you have to cultivate a sense of intuition, an inner relationship with what that voice sounds like. And the only thing that can do that truly is being present with yourself and being silent. Like you have to have times of introspection. You have to have times of self-reflection in order to navigate any of that. And so like self-validation is completely obviously, I understand like the external validation piece when you're dating people and you're out and you're looking for like your person and you're like really excited, but then also bummed if you can't find that person, and you're putting so much pressure on yourself to like get it right and date the right person and be with the right person. And what if you didn't do it right, or if you wasted time with somebody? All this to say is like every single interpersonal relationship you have is for your self discovery ultimately, and it's not a waste of time. So date around, listen to your intuition. And ultimately, you're going to learn about yourself over time through all of these beautiful relationships, whether they work out or not. They're still super meaningful.
Yeah, I feel like it comes down to your foundation with yourself and really exploring that through the lens of dating other people or just your relationships in general. I think bring up a really interesting container for you to explore, like what's still triggering you or what emotions you have. And sometimes we think that we've like healed through certain things, but then we get into a relationship with someone and it kind of creates this storm of emotion. So it is a really beautiful place to explore your sense of self, your intuition in relation to another person.
Totally.
When you talk a lot about like mental health habits in general and things that have improved your mental health and weird things that have improved your mental health. And I loved your take on it because I feel a lot of people obviously say meditation and therapy and journaling and those are kind of the things that everyone know, but you've explored kind of some different avenues that have helped your specific mental health. What are some things that you feel like have really changed the game for you?
They've been weird. They're weird. I think being weird is great. Like I have to, like, you have to find out what's weird for you, what feels really good for you. For me, like doing like walking tours every Friday, like building your own milestones, building your own rituals is super important because we remember milestones. Like if we live on the day-to-day basis, we do the same things in and out every single day, Monday through Friday, we're working the same. And when we don't have these milestones, we feel like life goes by really quickly because our brain really only markers milestones. And so creating those little rituals and those little milestones for yourself is super important for your mental health. I do that on Fridays. I'll like go on like walking tours in Spain. I'll have like a specific robe for myself for inside versus like outside. Like I'll drink a specific tea. I'll do like a specific ritual with like the green Tara goddess. I'll do like mantra rituals and stuff like that. I think it's just fun. Like have fun with it. It's like, it's supposed to make you feel good. So like whatever makes you feel good, have a special pair of fuzzy socks if you need to, like for a specific day, like get weird with it. I just love to get really creative with those things because ultimately it's like you're experiencing yourself and you're having fun with it. And as long as it feels really good for your body, it's totally good. It's great. Because meditation is not for everyone. That's why I feel like self-discovery can be done in a myriad of different ways. It can be done by journaling, like you said, by just self-reflection, contemplation, prayer, if you're into that, yoga, even just by yoga practices alone, or through relationships. You know, you can get a lot of self-discovery through relationships. So yeah, I like to do just like a really weird, fun things because it's like, why not?
I love that. Yeah, and it's a really unique approach, and it's like weird in quotation marks, but it's actually not weird at all. I love the ritualness of it because I feel it can be really monotonous and we kind of feel robotic almost, especially if you have a 9 to 5 job and you're working and you wake up and do the same things every single day, and maybe you're working from home and you're just like always repeating and rinsing the same exact thing over and over again, and it can be really easy to fall into a funk or just to, I don't know, lose the magic of what it is to be a human, and you feel like you're a cog in a wheel almost. I
Yeah.
love the specific rituals that you bring into your day because I think rituals are such a beautiful way to make your life feel like yours, and also just take
Hmm.
some ownership and power back and to bring some excitement and joy into something that could otherwise be mundane. What is your What's your favorite ritual right now? I love to hear more about the walking tours and the teas. Like I just love all that stuff, and I think it's really fun to learn about different people's practices.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think my favorite one right now is I do a walking meditation, but I just do it in my kitchen. So if you were to
Mm.
put a camera in my kitchen, you would see me looking like a crazy person because I'm walking in a circle because my kitchen's very small. But
Ah.
I have this little. I'm like I put my coffee on and I just like walk in this little tight sort of circle and like very slowly, and I'll just do my gratitude prayer. I'm like, oh, I'm grateful for my coffee. I'm grateful for my bed. I'm grateful for my home. Like just these basic things that really bring me gratitude. Because if I know I do a really small gratitude practice and I start with little things because I do it from a perspective of like, well, what if I didn't have this? Like, how much harder would my
Mm.
life be if I didn't have a bed? How much harder would it be if I didn't have this coffee right now that I really need? So I take the approach of like, when I really say it, I'm like, I'm actually meaning it from the place where like, oh my gosh, like if I didn't have this right now, it would be much harder for me. So it really comes from a
Mm.
place of gratitude. I'm just like walking in my kitchen, just so like in a circle. So that's one of my favorite ones right now. And then when I go through any threshold or any doorway, I take a minute before I enter the room and I'll just like take a breath and like make sure that I'm present in my body before I like enter a room. So it's like a small practice as well. And I do a bunch of stuff in the shower, like really weird, funny things in the shower. Like I'll do like energy
Like what?
swiping
I
because
love that. Ooh,
yeah. Well, I
what does
also
that
got
look like?
certified in energy healing.
Mm.
So what it looks like is so water is a conductor of energy. All of our cells have energy, and the shower is a really sacred practice actually to just get all that gunk off from the day, like that, just like that gunky energy, just like that feeling, especially if you've had a bad day. So I'll go in and I'll just with the shower, I'll visualize like taking the energy off of me, and so like you'll swipe your arms all the way down and back and then swipe across your chest and then swipe across your chest again and swipe again. So it's like, and swipe all the way down your legs. And it's just removing that bad energy. And I've done it outside the shower and inside the shower, and it actually makes a difference. The shower actually moves the energy in a weird way. It's very
Mm.
fun, but it's just a practice to say like I'm making an intention to be really clear with what I'm doing in the shower. Like I want to get fully clean. Like I want to get fully clean. I'm making that intention. And then just having a little practice to just be present with the body, just making sure you're like tapping. And I also do tapping as well in the
Mm.
shower. So,
Also, I saw you said something about eating citrus in the shower. I need to know what is
oh,
the
yeah.
citrus in the shower? Does that I've never done that before, but I also have never heard that before, but apparently it is a thing. So I need to know more.
It is a thing, apparently. There is a subreddit for it, which I didn't know until like, my sister was like, wait, you do that? Like, I've been on that subreddit. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. You just take an orange and you go and you eat it in the shower. It's very, very simple, but you can get
Mm.
really messy with it. It's a really good sensory experience. I'm all about sensory experiences, especially for rituals and stuff like that. And just for mindfulness practices, basically all sensory experience. So essentially, you'll just get an orange and then you just like peel it and eat it, and you get like really messy, and it'll just come right off because you're showering, and it's just a really delightful experience because it actually tastes way better in the shower. I don't know why. I
Oh
guess
my
because it's
gosh.
so novel. It's so novel. We need novelty in our lives because again, to what you were saying, we sort of like rinse and repeat every single day, and just having some sort of novelty really helps our brains be like fluid.
I love that. Yeah, sometimes I feel I get stuck in certain energy states, or I feel stuck in certain behaviors or certain habits or patterns, and I find it really hard to like move past it, especially if I've done it a couple of weeks in a row, or I just get into like a weird phase where I'm on my phone a lot, or I'm just like not engaging in practices that I know will make me feel good. And obviously, I know it has a lot to do with building neural pathways, and there's a big neuroscience element to it. But have you ever been in a phase like that where you kind of just feel energetically stuck and you're having a hard time getting out of it?
Yeah, like totally. But yeah, no, I think honestly, for me, what works for me to break me out of that is just creating new habits and also giving yourself a little bit of grace. Like, oh, I'm on my phone this week a lot. Like, all right, it's the phone week. Don't give yourself like, oh my God, I should be doing more practices. Like I should be feeling better. Like I'm stuck. It's okay. Like you'll get stuck. That's all right. But honestly, I found that just trying when I do get stuck, I just go outside. Like my auto response was like, oh, I got to get some sun. If I feel funky, I just go outside. And it actually kind of snaps me out of it. But I just try my best to like give myself a little bit of grace, try to reset as much as possible with doing slightly novel new things just to kind of break it up. And then, yeah, try my best and just be like, oh, it's a phase. It's a phase right now. Apparently your body needs it. Like if you're in a funk and you just need to doom scroll, that's fine. Like maybe that's what you need right now, and that's okay. You'll try again later.
It sounds like you've developed a very compassionate inner voice to yourself that sounds like you give yourself a lot of acceptance and grace when you're going through something. I'm curious how you've cultivated that and how you continue to build upon having a very gentle way of being with yourself.
It developed over time. I think reading a lot of like these beautiful spiritual books really helped, to be honest. Like Thich Nhat Hanh books are just beautiful. Like he writes so beautifully, and it's just Tara Brach is also a really great author as well.
I love her.
Yeah, I love everything she does. Those books just alone, her books alone will really transform your life. But it's just catching yourself. When you catch yourself speaking negatively about yourself, just catching yourself, be like, that's just a thought. That's just a thought, like any other thought, and just kind of disregard it as best as possible. But I try to make the personal deeply impersonal and the impersonal deeply personal. And what I mean by that is that when I see somebody struggling, I'm like, that's me. That's me struggling. I can see myself. Like I can see myself in that person, and it really helps in relationship as well. When I see them having a hard time with like something at work, and I'll be like, that is like so minimal. Like, why are you even bothered by that? But instead of saying that, I'll say, I've been there. Like I know what that feels like. I've been struggling like that. And then anything that I'm feeling, like if I'm having like some weird mental loop, I'm like, that's just the mind. It's impersonal. It's just what it does. Oh, I'm doom scrolling. That's just what it is. Like it's okay. Like I can give myself grace. We're all there. We've all been there. So I'm not putting myself above anybody else. I'm just kind of acknowledging like, hey, I'm human and we all kind of do this, and it's fine. It's totally fine.
I love that phrasing. Make the personal, impersonal, impersonal, personal. And I think it helps probably when you feel lonely or isolated in your thoughts. I think it's really easy when you're experiencing either a funky period or you're struggling with different thoughts that are coming up to feel shameful or isolated in what you're experiencing and think like you're the only person that has ever had those thoughts, or something is wrong with you, or that other people aren't experiencing what you're experiencing. But in reality, so many other people, everyone is experiencing some level of struggling or suffering. And maybe it's not the same thing that you're experiencing, but the output of it is usually the same, where you can universally have a similar emotion as someone else. So really pulling back and thinking like the mind instead of my mind, and giving yourself that grace and acceptance, I think is a really good way to approach it.
Yeah, it's greatly helped me, to be honest. It comes down to framing at the end of the day. How do we frame our lives? Because ultimately the framing gives us meaning, and we're driving towards meaning. And if we can frame it in a way that's meaningful to us, that aligns with our values and our morals and the way that we want to live, then that's like the whole cake. Like That's it right there. So I focus on my framing as much as possible. If I have any sort of like framing in my mind that's like hyper fixated, hyper anxious, because I'm a new mom and I have I have anxiety around like motherhood and all of that and what that means. And like my kid's safety and like he's always like tantruming and it's like two nervous systems regulation processing at the same time. But if I have like any sort of framing that doesn't serve me, I just rewrite it, because we're constantly telling ourselves the story of our lives to ourselves. Like, why not just rewrite it?
How do you do that? What are some practices that you use to not only rewrite it, but then truly believe in that new story instead of the old story that's not serving you?
First is what we were saying earlier is, so instead of saying your mind is the mind, it's just the mind. The mind is like, it's a mental model. It's like a relational database. Like certain experiences are going to produce certain thoughts are going to produce certain patterns and certain behaviors. It's like a funnel. So if you just understand, oh, this is just a thought pattern that I have, it's impersonal to me. It's just a thought. Like it's fine. So once I know that, I can rewrite it, because any other thing that you have that you put towards any other framing, you'll know that's also just a thought. It's fine. They're both thoughts, but which one's going to serve me more? Like, which one can I actually live by and feel good about? Because they're both just outputs, basically. And then once you start getting that framing and you start putting into place and saying like, okay, well, I want to view my life as something really meaningful. That's like, I'm striving towards X or something, like, instead of like, I'm suffering because this happened in the past, or whatever the framing is. Then you can really start having this sort of like confirmation bias, where anything that happens, you can say, all right, well, that comes towards this, that comes towards this. And whatever that doesn't serve you, like, you can take it and be like, that happens. Okay, that's great. But I'm telling this story. Like, I'm very focused on this narrative, because that's the one that serves me. And ultimately, like, we're going to talk to ourselves all day anyway. I feel like you might as well just start and just have it like work for you. So that's mostly how I do it. Oh, and then there's another practice, which is, I'll take a piece of paper, and whatever sort of limiting beliefs are present that I want to sort of rehaul, I'll do a 3-column paper, and I'll put all my thoughts in like single sentences of like what it is that I'm feeling. And I'll put them all down on this column. And then I'll put another column and I'll outline what emotion each of these ones are actually speaking towards. So if it's like anger, sadness, feeling less than, anything like that, I'll put it in this column. And then what I'll do is I'll rip it, and it's called expressive writing. You want to rip up what it is that you actually wrote. So you want to rip it up so you don't reference it anymore, and you're just stuck with your emotions. And then there's another column on that side. So what are you going to actually do to address the emotions in your body? So you're stuck with your emotions. Now, what are the practices that will actually help you? Like, that you know that will help you. Not that you should be doing or you shouldn't be doing, that you know that's going to help your sadness. Like, okay, well, maybe I should talk to a friend. Maybe I should just watch puppy videos. Maybe I should just like go for a walk. Like, whatever that you know that will help you to deal with your emotions, then you do that. Because the thoughts are just thoughts. They're getting in the way. They're just like mental noise. So I feel like it's like really important to address the emotions, and then the thoughts you'll just regenerate new ones and just do the ones that work for you.
I love that practice. I've never heard of that before, but I think it's so important to really look at the emotions that are coming from those beliefs and then try to figure out what is the actual need that you need to solve for. Because I think a lot of the times we feel something, we numb away from it, we never get to the root cause of what is the emotion, and then you're never able to actually explore what it is that you need to be able to come to some sort of resolution. I do this all the time, and it takes another level of effort to say, okay, I'm having this come up. That means this, which means I need X, like you're saying, and whatever X is different for everybody. But separating yourself from the limiting belief and just sticking with the thoughts, I think, is a really helpful practice, instead of, just looping or hyperfixating on those beliefs, and kind of you're taking it to the next step.
Yeah. A lot of times we intellectualize and like we'll just circle the drain with our thoughts and never actually never actually like sit with our feelings, because it's easier to think about the thoughts and like keep thinking more thoughts about that thought and get into this rabbit hole versus just like sitting and just like having a good cry or having just like a good screaming session or like reassessing our relationship with our emotions in general. Like, what's our emotion to anger? What's our emotion to sadness? Or what's our relationship to it? I mean, yeah, I think it's a really good practice I started doing and actually really helped.
Yeah, I experience that too, where I will feel something and then I either won't like let myself feel it to the fullest extent because I feel like I kind of just have to bypass it or I'm scared of it almost like it won't pass if I sit in it, or I do what you said, which is intellectualize it, and I just, rationalize my way out of it, and I never actually validate the emotion. So then it doesn't actually resolve it. It loops it over and over and over again. But it's not until you actually understand and sit with the root feeling that you can get to that resolution and actually feel it to the fullest extent.
Yeah. I've just been assessing my relationship with everything, literally with everything. Because I do relationship TikToks, right? But everything is relational. Everything is relational. Mm-hmm. Like what you feel, what's your relationship to work? What's your relationship to love in general, to anger, to sadness? Like how do we give ourselves psychological safety, right? We talk about psychological safety within relationship, but we don't even give it to ourselves. Like we don't let ourselves feel anything. We don't let ourselves be angry. Like, what does that actually look like when we let ourselves be angry? Like, are we going to kick? Are we going to scream? Are we going to throw things? Like, what are we going to do? Like, I don't know if we ever like let ourselves get there, kind of doing like this overhaul for myself of like, what are my relationships to the things, to the mental processes, to the thoughts I have, to the concepts that I hold, to everything, because ultimately that is how we experience our lives, is the relationship we hold. Like, how do we hold them in mind? How do we experience them? So yeah, it's been an interesting ride doing that.
Wow, I love that approach and being really curious about your relationships to everything, not just your, partnerships or friendships, because it is a huge part of how it's all of how we experience the world is our relationship to different things, and especially ourselves. And that psychological safety that we talked about earlier, that's so important to build new relationships, is like even more important to build within yourself. And I've experienced a lot of points in my life of self-abandonment or like running from myself and not cultivating that psychological safety, which has caused so many different painful periods in my life. And over, the past couple of years, I've really worked on cultivating what internal safety looks like for me. But I think it's a bit mystified to some people how you can cultivate that sense within yourself. What are some practices that you've been doing or exploring that have worked for you to cultivate that internal safety?
I'm going to say it again, mindfulness. But like some sort of silent practice, just like even if you took like 5 minutes a day and we just like didn't put anything, no content in front of you, no nothing, no music, no headphones, no nothing. Just sit there. Just be with what is. Just have a little bit of a meditation, just a tiny minute meditation. And what you actually just really want to do is meditation. All you're doing is going from thought to sensation. That's all you're doing. You're not doing anything else. We're just going to go to sensation, and you're going to feel what is around you. You're going to feel your chair. You're going to feel the wind if you have the wind, and you're just going to take a moment. Then it'll start coming up for me at that point. If I'm feeling anything, some thought will come up, be like, oh man, I didn't do this thing for my kid. Like I should have done this. Like I'll just calm it down again. But just cultivating that presence little by little, it helps, because when you do get triggered, you will have that like little second to just fall back again. And when I do get triggered, I'm starting to at least vocalize it if I'm in front of somebody and be like, hey, I'm getting activated. Like I removed anxiety from my vocabulary. Like I do not say that. Because we have mental models around what anxiety looks like and feels like, and who an anxious person is, and like how they behave. So I don't personally use the word anxious, but I just say I'm activated. I'm getting it. I'm activated. So once I'm activated, I'll either go to another room. If I have to cry, I'll let myself actually cry. If I have the time and space to do so, I'll have to express what it is. So I'll either do some, not butterfly tapping, because I actually pound on my chest. Some people do butterfly tapping, which is great. But for me, it doesn't work for me because I'm like so full of anger sometimes because it's like so repressed for so many years that I have to like literally pound on my chest and my arms all the way down. And that's like how to get it out. Finding safe ways, whatever that looks like for you, to express whatever emotion. Give yourself that second arrow. In Buddhism, there's like this concept of a second arrow where it's like you have the emotion and then the second arrow is the shame or the guilt that you have for feeling that emotion. Like don't have that. Just go ahead and do what you need to do. And if you're with a group that's not compassionate towards that, it's unfortunate. But I honestly, I would just give yourself some grace. If you have to suppress it, just give yourself some grace and just give yourself some time after when you're not with them to just grieve or do whatever you want.
Yeah, I love the second arrow concept. It cut out, so I'm not sure if you went into it. Do you want to like speak a little bit more about what the second arrow is? Because that's something that I found so helpful in my own self-acceptance. Is like the first arrow is sometimes unavoidable, but like what you do and your reaction to that is what you can control. So can you explain the concept a little bit for people that haven't heard of it before? Because I think it's really reframed my perspective.
Yeah. Second arrow is a concept in Buddhism where you'll have an emotion, like an unpleasant emotion, like fear or anger or sadness. And then the second arrow is that sort of shame or that guilt that you feel on top of that for feeling the way that you do. So we don't allow ourselves to feel the guilt we don't allow ourselves to feel the sadness or the anger because we feel guilty or shame around that. And that amplifies the fear and the guilt and the shame and the anger. And it just amplifies everything to the point where it actually becomes too overwhelming for you to actually feel any of it because now you're just shutting down. It's really important that we practice giving ourselves a little grace, giving ourselves a little bit of that inner compassion, that self-compassion, because that makes it so much worse when we do that. And it's just not helpful to you to process your emotions. It's easier said than done for sure. But
definitely. I think guilt and shame are some of the hardest emotions to deal with, but they come up because people have this perception that if they were to give themselves grace or like just be a little bit more gentle on themselves, then like everything would just unravel and their whole life would fall apart. Like we have this perspective that we need to be always on it, and other people can make mistakes, but we can't make mistakes, or other people can have certain behaviors and we put so much pressure on ourselves in a way that we never do for other people. So I think it's interesting to explore, like, if you're listening and you're like, oh no, I can't give myself grace because then I would, I don't know, catastrophize all the way, like lose my job or lose my relationship or whatever it may be. Like people just go to the worst case scenario of just being a little bit kinder to themselves. So I think it's interesting to explore, like, what happens if I mess up? What happens if I do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, or just like don't beat myself up for once and see, like, does the worst case scenario really happen? Probably not. Yeah, it is interesting to explore. What is something that you're feeling really excited or curious about right now that feels maybe like a new beginning for you, or something that is back to that novel concept that you talked about, like a new concept that you're getting excited about?
I'm excited about content creation. Although if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have been like, you're insane. Like I would never be on the internet and be talking on a video. Like, what are you doing? But I had this moment in meditation and my intuition said, hey, you need to start a TikTok. And I'm like, why would my brain tell me that? It's so random. But I did, and it's doing a lot of good for a lot of people, which is the whole point of when I started this entire journey, was like, how can I help people in a way that's not like, it's not about me. It's about like just expressing the things that I've learned over time and seeing if that's benefiting people and if it actually makes a difference in somebody's life. And it's been really beneficial for people. So I'm like really loving the feedback loop that I'm getting from the people that are like using the videos and like doing the things and like expressing back to me like, hey, this is actually helping me. Like this has made a difference in my life. That has been a really great and exciting new sort of chapter in my life, beyond like motherhood and stuff like that. Which is really challenging and beautiful in its own right. I'm really enjoying this like sort of new phase in like the mindfulness space that I'm in.
I love that. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared today. Where can people find you or engage with you? I know obviously I'll post everything down below, but what are the channels that you're connecting with people?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok as get_wavy. And I'm also on Instagram now. I just started it last week at Stef_gets_wavy. That's really long, but you'll like everything. But I like to get wavy because it's like another way of me saying like, don't get so stuck in your ways. Like, get a little weird with it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That's perfect. Okay, I'll link everything down below. I love everything that you're sharing. I really appreciate you coming on today, and this was such a fun conversation.
Thanks so much. This was great.
Hope you loved this episode of Recalibrate. I am so grateful to be in your ears and to spend time with you and to get to share this conversation with you all. If you want to stay in touch, we are recalibrate.podcast on Instagram and also on TikTok at Recalibrate Podcast for short little clips. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, week, whenever you're listening to this, and I'll talk to you again so soon.